For decades, the diplomatic playbook on Israel and Palestine was written in Washington and echoed in London, Ottawa, and Canberra, but that playbook has been torn up. The UK, Canada, and Australia, three key pillars of the Anglosphere and traditional Israeli allies, have now formally recognized the state of Palestine. What seismic forces could cause such a dramatic U-turn? This isn't about a sudden love for Palestinian statehood. This is about the collapse of a narrative, the rise of new global powers, and a cold, hard recalculation of national interest. To understand this shift, we need context. For over half a century, a US-led alliance system treated Israel as its primary, unsinkable aircraft carrier in the Middle East. The Palestinian cause was often sidelined. The peace process became a perpetual motion machine, lots of talk, little action. This was the status quo. This was the world order these three nations were upholding, until it shattered. The catalyst was the war in Gaza, but the reason it became a tipping point was a fundamental shift in how we consume information. For the first time, traditional media gatekeepers lost control. Raw, unfiltered footage of destruction and suffering bypassed editorial boards and landed directly in the palms of millions. This created a yawning gap between the official narrative and the visceral reality people were witnessing. Concepts like surgical strikes crumbled against the imagery of entire neighborhoods, reduced to rubble. The narrative war, which Israel had won for decades, was decisively lost in the court of global public opinion. And in democracies, public opinion eventually translates into political pressure. This brings us to the first deep driver, domestic politics. Firstly, the electorate is changing. Younger, more diverse generations see this conflict through a lens of anti-colonialism and human rights, not old alliances. Secondly, key voting blocs are mobilizing. This is a broad coalition of Muslim communities, progressive activists, and human rights organizations who have made this a defining moral issue. Thirdly, the political cost of inaction began to outweigh the cost of action. For leaders, staying silent was becoming a liability. Recognizing Palestine became a way to reclaim the narrative and signal they are on the right side of history. While the West was grappling with its public, the tectonic plates of Middle Eastern power were shifting. A new assertive bloc is rising, and it's not aligned with the old pro-Israel consensus. Economic and energy clout. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar are global investment powerhouses. Their economic leverage is immense, and the Palestinian cause remains central to their public legitimacy. Military strategic independence. Turkey has built a world-class defense industry. Nations like Saudi Arabia are now buying Turkish drones, bypassing the traditional US monopoly on arms sales. Diplomatic mastery. Qatar has perfected the art of mediation and influence. Together, these nations form a powerful bloc that doesn't need Washington's permission to act. Ignoring this shift means risking being left out of the future economic and security architecture of the most strategically vital region in the world. This is part of the larger trend of a multipolar world. The era of a single American superpower is over. Western nations are now forced to perform a delicate balancing act, recognizing Palestine as a relatively low-cost way too. This recognition is a strategic recalibration for a new world order. So what does this mean for Israel? Its challenge is not a military collapse, but a gradual erosion of legitimacy. Step 1. The narrative defeat. We covered this. Israel is losing the story. Step 2. Legal and diplomatic isolation. Cases at the ICJ and ICC create a powerful stigma. These recognitions are a massive blow to Israel's diplomatic fortress. Step 3. Economic fraying. While not crippling, the BDS movement and investor wariness create friction. Israel is finding itself in a corner, not just by hostile neighbors, but by an increasingly hostile international community. Its greatest asset, its legitimacy, is depreciating. Where does this lead? Scenario 1, the forced two-state revival, the most likely outcome. With major Western powers on board, the two-state solution gets a jolt of adrenaline, backed by Gulf states pressuring both sides. Scenario 2, the Bantustan trap, the pessimist's view. Israel accepts a Palestinian state in name only, so fragmented by settlements that it's not truly sovereign. This doesn't bring peace, just a changed conflict. Scenario 3, the regional integration model, the optimist vision. A moderate Israeli government seeks a grand bargain, full normalization with Saudi Arabia in exchange for a genuine Palestinian state. This recognition makes that path more likely. Let's recap. This decision is the result of a perfect storm. This is a definitive signal that the global order is being rewritten. If this analysis helped you connect the dots, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Let me know in the comments. What was the most decisive factor in this shift? Until next time, stay curious, stay critical.
For over 70 years, the UK, Canada, and Australia stood side by side with Israel. They voted together in the UN. They defended Israel in every conflict. But suddenly, everything is changing. These very same countries are now recognizing Palestine as an independent state. Why now? What happened behind the scenes? In today's deep dive, we'll uncover how global power, media, and alliances have quietly shifted, and why it may change the Middle East forever. To understand this shift, we must go back to 1948, the birth of Israel. After World War II, Britain, yes, the same UK now recognizing Palestine, helped establish Israel in the heart of the Arab world. The Western Bloc saw Israel as a strategic ally against Soviet influence and instability in the Middle East. But times have changed. The Cold War is gone. The power map has redrawn itself. The real earthquake began after October 7th. As Gaza burned, the world watched. Not through TV filters, but through raw phone footage, social media live streams, and citizen reports. For the first time, millions saw unedited scenes, hospitals bombed, children pulled from rubble. This was a war live-streamed in real time, and that changed everything. For decades, Israel and its allies controlled the global narrative. Western media repeated government lines, but social media broke that monopoly. TikTok, Instagram, and X, Twitter, became tools of truth, where images spoke louder than official statements. Soon, polls showed something shocking. In the US, Canada, and the UK, public sympathy began shifting toward Palestine. Young people, especially Gen Z, refused to accept old propaganda. Western politicians felt that pressure. Their streets were full of protests, universities rising, journalists questioning government bias. At the same time, Middle Eastern nations were changing fast, no longer weak, divided, or dependent on the West. Countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Turkey became economic and political giants. They control energy markets, invest trillions in global assets, and influence Western economies directly. So, the West had a choice: stay blindly loyal to Israel, or protect its future economic ties with the new Middle East. Let's look at what's happening quietly behind the scenes. Saudi Arabia buying advanced drones, not from the US, but from Turkey. Pakistan and Saudi Arabia signing deep military-economic agreements. Qatar acting as a mediator in almost every regional crisis. These moves point to one truth: the Muslim world is uniting, slowly, strategically, around shared interests. They're no longer waiting for Western permission. Global power rests on three legs: narrative, economy, and military. Israel once dominated all three through Western backing, but today, it's losing control of each. The narrative is collapsing, economic partnerships are shifting to the east, and militarily, regional players are catching up. When you lose control of the story, your enemies don't need to defeat you with bombs. They defeat you with truth. So why did the UK, Canada, and Australia suddenly move toward Palestine recognition? Because they're adapting, not apologizing. They see the old geopolitical game ending. They can't afford to isolate themselves from new regional powers. It's not about morality, it's about math, trade, and influence. Trade. There's also domestic politics. Western democracies are shaped by their people, and those people are changing. In cities like London, Toronto, Sydney, Muslim and immigrant communities are growing, vocal, and politically active. Governments can't ignore that. So recognizing Palestine becomes both a moral gesture and a political calculation. Make no mistake, Israel remains militarily powerful, but its greatest weapon was always legitimacy, and that's what it's losing. Every new recognition of Palestine chips away at Israel's political armor. It's not the tanks or Iron Dome that protect Israel, it's global acceptance. And when that fades, isolation begins. So what's next? Three possible futures emerge. 1. A truly independent Palestinian state supported by global consensus. 2. A reshaped Israel, forced to become more diplomatic and less aggressive. 3. Or, worst case, a prolonged period of hybrid wars and shifting alliances. The direction depends on how the US responds, whether it clings to the old order or embraces this new balance of power. We are entering a multipolar world. No single nation dictates the rules anymore. The Middle East, long seen as the world's battlefield, is now shaping its own destiny. Western nations recognize this, and adjusting early gives them a seat at the new table. The recognition of Palestine by Western powers isn't just diplomacy, it's a sign that the world is changing. Old loyalties are fading, new alliances are rising, and history is being rewritten right in front of us. If you found this video insightful, please like, share, and subscribe. Comment below. Do you think this shift will bring peace or more chaos? Until next time, stay aware, stay informed.